Well, Namaskar, Anyong Hasanika. Welcome back to the day 3 of the 10-day workshop on Facets of Modern India, a truly cosmopolitan masterclass, I must say, by globally renowned experts from India. We have an excellent panel lined up for the next few days, all experts in their own domain, to discuss about the facets of modern India. We started the workshop on 1st of September with the inaugural address of Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe, who is the president of Indian Council of Cultural Relations. Very aptly in his inaugural address, Dr. Sahasrabudhe summarized the idea of India in the 5 points, which embodies the essence of India and the Indian identity. Day 2 of the workshop witnessed the special lecture by Professor Makarand Paranjape on Indian philosophical traditions, and he shared his perspective on Swami Vivekananda and the Indian Renaissance. All the lectures are on our social media handles, and you can go back to it for any future reference. For those who are joining us for the first time, I request you to follow, like, and subscribe to our social media handles for more updates about our past and future events. Well, friends, let us begin with a special lecture today, which will be followed by the open house discussion and live interaction with the participants. I'm extremely delighted to have amongst us Professor Rishikesh Senapati, who is the director at NCERT, one of the premier institutions of India, who is joining us live here today from New Delhi, along with the presence of Her Excellency Shri Priya Ranganathan, Ambassador of India to Republic of Korea, for today's special lecture on National Education Policy 2020. With these words, let me now call upon Ambassador Shri Priya Ranganathan for her opening remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Welcome, Professor Senapati. It's such a pleasure to have you on our series as our expert speaker. I think the topic that you are going to be speaking on is a subject on which not only our Korean friends but also many of us in India are very eagerly waiting to get your insights and your professional and expert look at why we have done what we have done and what is the advantage that we foresee for the way in which the Indian human resource can be enriched and made more meaningful, not only for the people of India but also for the global economy. And I think that is what we would really be would be our major takeaway from this session, at least as far as the embassy is concerned. That how can the developments and the changes that the new education policy is will bring about, how will that be of consequence and relevance and utility to the Korean business and academic and research fraternity? So we are hugely looking forward to having you and listening to you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I'll not stand between you and the audience any further. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your opening remarks. We now move over to the invited speaker for today, Professor Rishikesh Senapati, who is the director at National Council of Education, Research and Training at New Delhi. His area of specialization has been teachers' education and information and communication technology in education. He is also a UNESCO expert on information and communication technology from India. In addition to many areas concerning school education, he has also worked on integration of information and communication technology into constructivist theory of learning to bring a paradigm shift in the teachers' education practices. Earlier, he was heading the Regional Institute of Education at Bhopal, which is a constituent unit of NCERT, as its principal. He has been a leading figure in drafting the National Education Policy 2020 and has now been actively engaged in preparation for the national curriculum framework and implementation of the national education policy. Let us hear to your special lecture and views on National Education Policy 2020 and your perspectives on transformational changes and reforms in school and higher education. It is a personal pleasure and delight to welcome you once again and look forward to your insights. Over to you, Professor Senapati.
Thank you, madam. I'm very happy to be a part of this. Madam Ambassador Supriya Ranganathan, Dr. Sonu Tripathi, and other dignitaries present here. This is a good opportunity for all of us because we are going to discuss something on National Policy on Education 2020, which has been just released on 29th July. It has very serious implication, not only for India and also for other countries, because India is going to be the youngest country in the world, and we have a large number of youth, and we can, if we can provide them right type of education, then they will be asset not only to India only, but also to the other countries at international level, because Indians are known for their hard work, their commitment all over the world. I would like to highlight on this policy, not only the policy on school education as well as on higher education. And also I will show you the roadmap, what we are going to do after this for the implementation of this policy, because NCERT is the apex body on school education. And we have to take the responsibility of the implementation of this policy, particularly in the field of school education. And since we have 5 regional institutes of education running teacher education program, and we have school and from preschool to PhD program, we are also interested in higher education. So this is a concern for all of us, and just I would like to show you some slides, and I will highlight the points. Then we can have discussion. So this is the policy. When we say policy, because India became independent in the year 1947, and after independence we have 3 commissions. One is the University Education Commission 1948-49, then Secondary Education Commission 52-53, then Education Commission, it is known as the Kothari Education Commission, National Education Commission. This is the 64-66. Then we had our policy, first policy on education in the year 1968. Then the second policy was in the year 1986. Then this 86 policy was modified and the program of action was prepared in the year 1992. And now we are going to have the new policy, that is the policy 2020, and after I think 34 years. So this is the policy we. Okay. I think there is some problem. My slides are not moving. Okay. What I feel that this policy has a vision, and when we say policy has a vision, this policy is based on Indian ethos, because this is the first time we are trying our best to connect our youth to the root, because our children should know their culture, their language, their value system. Although it was there, I don't say that it was not there, but this policy has highlighted a lot on Indian culture, Indian tradition. So that is why that first we have to take into account the Indian ethos. Then we have to create a very equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. And our target is to provide education to all. So that is the most important vision, and a very deep sense of respect towards the fundamental rights and duties and the constitutional values, because we all know about our rights, but we should also be conscious of our duties and responsibility. That is more important, and through education we can help our children to feel the responsibility, and they can take the responsibility. So that is the most important thing. Then we want to instill the value, the skills that support commitment to human rights and sustainable development, and particularly global citizenship. So not only we are highlighting on Indian culture, Indian tradition, Indian value system, but also ultimately our goal is to prepare global citizen, so that our children will be good citizen of this country. Also, they will be global citizen. They will also think for others, because in India we believe in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, so from the beginning, and that is known as the world. Whole world is as one family. So that is our philosophy, that is our culture. So that we want to take our children from that throughout this education system, that they will understand our culture, and also internationally they can be global citizen, and they can contribute significantly, not only in nation building, also in international understanding. So that is the purpose. And then when we say about this education policy, here you'll find there is some change. In this policy, we have suggested a new structure that is known as 5+3+3+4 structure. Earlier in India, we had 10+2 structure, 10 years of school education up to secondary, then higher secondary 2 years, 10+2. Now it is 5+2, 5+3+3+4. And here, what we are going to do, here in the first 5 year, you'll find that we are putting a lot of emphasis on preschool education. That is the foundational stage. And when we say foundational stage, that means we are putting a lot of emphasis on preschool education, because maximum brain development takes place during this period. That is why this policy has highlighted on this foundational stage, that is for 3 years preschool plus class 1, 2. This will be one stage, that is the foundational stage. Then the second stage will be the preparatory stage, that is class 3, 4, and 5. Then the third stage is the middle stage, that is 6, 7, 8. Then the last stage, the 4 year, that is the secondary stage, that is 9, 10, 11, 12. And here, when we are talking about this policy, this structure, you will not find much change in physical structure, because in 10+2, all that means 1 to 12, they're already there, and just we are going to add 3 classes from in the beginning. This is but much you'll find in curricular and pedagogical aspect. That means a lot of curricular change and lots of pedagogical change will take place, because we have to bring out a curricular reform, and we have to bring out a pedagogical reform to implement this policy in this 5+3+3+4 structure, because that is most important. Because what we are doing now in our country, we all are very serious about the exam. You all might be knowing, because we want our children should secure good mark, and we want our children should have content mastery, and they should secure good marks, so that they can be placed in a better institution and get a better job. But actually, that is not going to help our children, because that is why we want, instead of securing a good mark, instead of having content mastery, they should have competency mastery. And our focus has been shifted from content mastery to competency mastery. They're keeping in view the 21st century learning skill, because in 21st century learning skill, what we want our children should develop the critical thinking, to develop the problem solving ability, to develop communication skills, should develop their creativity, so that they can be good citizen of this country, and they can be good human being. And keeping in view that, now we are preparing our children. So that is why in this policy you will find when we talk of the curricular and pedagogical change, you'll find a lot of focus has been given to experiential learning. Let our children experience, let our children share their experiences with others, let them collaborate with others, let them explore the things, and that will really help them to construct their knowledge. So that is why we want our children should construct their knowledge. They should be good citizen of this country. And keeping in view that, what we have done, we have developed, we have come out with this new structure. We have a lot of emphasis on this foundational stage. Not only that they we are going to take care of their all-round development, but we are putting a lot of emphasis on this foundational literacy and numeracy, because that is most important. If in the beginning stage our children will develop their literacy skills and numeracy skills, then definitely there will be no problem in future. There will be less the dropout, and that is the most important thing we are going to do through this policy. And what you will find that in this policy, we are talking of many things. So we are talking of introducing vocational education from class 6. The foundation, once the foundation is strong, our children not only will develop their cognitive domain, they will develop all the domain. That means they will be physically strong and mentally sound and morally sound, emotionally stable. So that means all the aspects of their personality will develop. So that is why we are putting a lot of emphasis in this foundational stage, so that foundation will be strong. Then when they will go to the middle stage, in middle stage you will find that we are going to start this vocational education from class 6, because earlier in India or vocational education you'll find it is from class 9 onwards, 9, 10, 11, 12 in school education, it is there. But here in this policy we are going to start vocational education from class 6, and you'll find that there is no hard separation. That means between this vocational education and mainstream education. Vocational education is going to be an integral part of this teaching learning process, and with any other subjects, our student will also learn vocational education, and after completion of the school education, at least they can have mastery of one vocational skill. That is the purpose. So from the early stage they will be exposed to different vocational skills, different vocation, and they will develop their interest, their attitude towards that. And when they will go to higher education, they can choose, and they can choose the vocation as per their choice and as per their interest. So that is the purpose that we are going to start. Then you will find in the secondary stage, when we say that is the class 9, 10, 11, 12, and lot of flexibility in this policy. You will find that lot of flexibility is there. Flexibility you will find not only in the curriculum, but in our approach, approach to examination. So you'll find a lot of flexibility, not only in school education, also in higher education. And why I'm saying so, because when we say flexibility, there will be no restriction. They can select any subject at secondary stage. They can select any subject of their choice. So that is the most important, because earlier what we are doing, we had some limitation that they only art students can study the art subject, science students can study the science subject. If somebody is having interest, because we are talking of multiple intelligence, it is not only logical mathematical intelligence. When we are talking of multiple intelligence, then we should also cater to the need of our children. We should provide them opportunity so that they can develop their multiple intelligence. They can they develop in the right direction. That is why we are going to have this multidisciplinary approach, and there will be no restriction, and they can make their own choice. They can select their subjects, and it is going to bring about a change, because those who are not good in science, let them do something else, and that opportunity will be there. Then here what we find that another most important thing, we're talking of multilingualism in this policy. Right? Because you think in India we have 22 scheduled language, but what we find, we have many dialects. Our children who are coming normally, we ask our children in our system, we ask them that at least in the early stage, that medium of instruction should be mother tongue. And it is also scientific and research studies show that if they learn through mother tongue, that learning will be better. But what is the problem? What problem we are facing in India? Even suppose I am from a particular state, I am from Odisha, and the state language is Odia. But all the children who are coming from Odisha, their mother tongue is not Odia. So the children who are coming from tribal area, who are coming from other part of Odisha, their mother tongue is not Odia. They are speaking some other language, and they are not in a position to understand the Odia language. And if we can teach them through their mother tongue, then they can comprehend, they can learn in a better way, and they will not leave school. And actually it will help our children to develop their potentialities. And that is something very, very significant, that bilingual approach we are going to adopt, and we are encouraging multilingualism, at least in the beginning stage, early stage, though they can get education through their mother tongue. That is the most important aspect of this policy. And also 3 language formula there, and when they will go to the secondary stage, they can select any language of their choice, and 2 Indian language, 1 foreign language, and this time this Korean language has been also included, and this is and other foreign languages, and they can learn. So that freedom is there, and there is no restriction. And research says in early stage children can learn more languages. So it is up to the parents, it is up to the state, and it is up to the school. They can decide and they can help children to learn in their mother tongue, and that provision is there in policy. At least up to class 5, medium of instruction will be mother tongue. And when we are talking of multilingualism, those who are not getting the opportunity to learn through their mother tongue, now they will get opportunity to learn through their mother tongue. This is something great, and really it will bring about a significant change in the system. So this is then when we are talking of all these, we are talking of the pedagogy. You know that in pedagogical that we have already, though we are going to implement this policy, but in earlier also in our national curriculum framework also we are promoting this constructivist learning theory, because our expectation was that our children should be exposed to different situations. They should get variety of experiences, and they should also come out with different solution, not only one solution. We should not give them only one answer or one solution. Let them explore, let them come out with many solutions, so that it will help in the development of the divergent thinking that we want. Our children should become more creative. But here in that policy has suggested a lot of change in pedagogical approach. When you are talking of experiential learning, not only the children will explore, children will experience, but along with this you will find art integrated learning. Art is going to play a very significant role. Art, that means music, dance. We have already experimented in NCERT. We have come out with some modules, and we are experimenting in different blocks, and that this is found very effective, because children enjoy learning. And when we integrate art, that children enjoy learning, that learning becomes very meaningful for them. And also, second thing, we are promoting our art and culture. So that in policy you will find art integrated learning, and in policy you will find ICT integrated learning. And ICT is going to play a very significant role, because when we are talking of technology, technology is going to play a very significant role, and it can bring about change in the whole teaching learning process. And we are now during this COVID period, and we are doing everything using technology. And it is also, this policy has also put a lot of emphasis on this integration of ICT. So that means, and we are talking of bagless day in policy, because we are talking of school bag, because bag is heavy, and we want to reduce the load, bag load, and that also you will find in this policy. We are talking of the bag less, so that in some days children will come to school without school bag, and they will be they will have different experience. We are talking of internship. When we are integrating vocational education, children can go to the visit different places and work with different people. And in this policy, particularly for school education, we are talking of school complex. And when we are talking of school complex, that means that there will be a cluster many schools will participate, and they will share their experiences. So that will be there. Okay. Still some problem. Okay. This is the towards no problem. So what I feel that when we are talking of all these, all these are something relating to pedagogy we are discussing. But if really we want change in the system, we have to bring about change in the process of assessment. That is most important. It may be school education, it may be higher education. If we can introduce change in the process of assessment, then definitely you will find that automatically change will take place in the system. If there is no change in the process of assessment, then it will be very difficult. We may bring about change in our approach, in our mindset, in our classroom activities. If there is no change in the process of assessment, nothing will happen. That is why in this policy, you will find we are now discussing 360-degree assessment. And earlier, assessment was done by the teacher only. But now, this assessment will be done by teacher, assessment will be done by the students, and also by the peer group. That means there will be self-assessment, there will be peer assessment, and there will be a teacher assessment. And this is something new we are going to introduce. And the purpose is to make assessment more transparent. And the most important purpose is to involve our students in the process of assessment. It is not assessment of learning. We are not going to make the assessment at the end. It is assessment for learning. For learning, we normally conduct, that is the earlier practice. And what we do, we assess the performance of our children during the teaching learning process, and we try to give them some remedial measures, some feedback, so that they can improve their learning standard. But now we are talking of assessment as learning. That is the most important thing you will find in from pedagogical point of view. Assessment is not something isolated. It is not something separate from teaching learning. It is an integral part of teaching learning. That is the most important. And children will decide how they are going to be assessed. Because when we are talking of this assessment as learning, we can develop rubrics. And when we develop rubrics, we take the help of the students. When we take the help of the student, they know the criteria. When we decide the criteria, and we decide the criteria in consultation with the students. And once students know the criteria, they will prepare accordingly. And when they themselves will assess, there will be self-assessment, peer assessment. So ultimately what will happen, they can know their strength and they can know their weakness, and they will be involved in the process of teaching learning. That is most important. But we want our children to be actively involved, so that they will realize their potentialities, and they will get the opportunity to explore, they will get the opportunity to participate. So that is the most important thing, and that our children can do. So that is why you will find a lot of emphasis has been given on assessment. If really we can bring about change in the process of assessment, then we can bring about change in the entire teaching learning process, entire education system. And that pedagogy, assessment, both are interrelated. Integrated assessment is the integrated. That is why in policy you will find a lot of emphasis has been given on this assessment. Then the vocational education, I have already discussed vocational education, that we're going to introduce from class 6. And this teacher is the key, because teacher is the most important person, and everything depends on the teacher. And that is why in this policy, you will find a lot of focus has been given to teacher. A lot of emphasis has been given for the professional development of teacher, to improve the service condition of the teacher. And also there is we are going to have some standard for the teaching, because for school education, we have developed learning outcome. From class 1 to 10, we have developed, and now we are working on class 11 and 12. And very shortly, we'll come out with all the learning outcome. But teacher education, because teachers should know what are the competencies and we should know what competency our teachers should have, so that they can implement this curriculum in proper manner inside the classroom. That is why we should define that teacher standard. We should come out with the learning outcome. That is most important, that policy has highlighted. And also we are going to use technology, and it is also going to play a very significant role in this school education. So this is something very, very important in school education. And so we have many out of school children, and around more than 20 million out of school children are there in India. And we are also trying to bring them back to school, and some alternative mode also we are thinking, and policy has recommended something. And that will be continuous tracking, and that when we are going to establish this national mission for this literacy and numeracy, and that will really help to improve the quality of teaching learning, and that will make the foundation strong. So that is most important. Then what you will find, that in this policy, particularly in school education, what we are when we are talking of pedagogy, that means our children, our role should be changed, because we should facilitate, we should not deliver lecture, and our students should be very active. And our classroom process should be different. They should not sit in one place continuously. They should do something. They should be engaged, and assessment should be integrated. That we expect. Then after this, you will find that when we are going to implement this, particularly in school education, we now the one most important challenge we are going to face in our country, that so far as the preschool is concerned. Because when we are going to have this preschool, and we have to face many challenges, because the condition is not good in rural area, in tribal area, and there we have to invest a lot. And this policy has suggested that at least 6% of GDP will be spent for this education. So this is something good, so that we can invest more and we can develop infrastructure and we can bring about change in the entire system of education. So that is the most important thing we are going to do. And similarly, when we are talking of the higher education, in higher education also you'll find a lot of change that the policy has suggested, because structural change, because earlier it was 3-year degree and policy has suggested that maybe 4-year degree, and there is multiple exit and student may join, they may exit after this, so then there is no problem. And for that, if they leave after 1 year, then they can get certificate. Or if they leave after 2 years, they will get a diploma. Or if they leave after 3 years, then they will get degree. But the 4-year program is preferred. And the policy has also suggested 5-year degree program, and they can join PhD after 5-year degree and also after 4-year this graduation. And that is the most important thing, because and there is this credit system, and they can also leave anytime, and again they can come back and join. So I think a lot of facility has been provided, and I think our students will be benefited a lot, particularly in higher education. And the same thing also we are going to implement in higher education. So far the pedagogy is concerned, we are talking of the holistic development of the learner, and our focus will not be only on cognitive development, and focus will be on affective and psychomotor development. Focus will be on development of constitutional values, and making them responsible for their own duties. That is most important. Through education we can do that. And similarly, you will find policy, through this policy, we are going to provide a lot of scholarship for the children who are coming from socio-economically deprived groups. And the policy has suggested, because we are talking of equity and equity, inclusion, and a lot of focus is on inclusive education. All children should come together and learn. Every child should get the opportunity to learn, and that inclusive education, equity is the focus of the policy, and not only in school education but also in higher education. And a lot of focus is on research and foundation. A research foundation is going to be established, and the university, you will find teaching university, research university, and the college will be awarding degree. And in the process, we are talking of a lot of autonomy, because this affiliation system will not be there, and a lot of autonomy will be there, so that they can award their institution, higher education institution can award their degree. And we are talking of this multiple this multilingualism and also multidisciplinary approach in higher education also, and that is going to really help, and that is going to bring about change, significant change in the entire system of education. So that we are going to do. And higher education institution also will support school education. Now you will find there is a watertight compartment. Even in school education, there are even different subjects. That means this is math, and this is science, this is social science. And now in this policy, you will find we are talking of interdisciplinary approach. Similarly, in this school education and higher education, there is no link. So that link is missing. Then now we are trying to establish the link so that there will be smooth transition. And we are really, school education is preparing for higher education, and that smooth link should be established, and that should be explored. And the subject boundary should not be there, and our children should try to explore what is the relationship between science and social science. That aspect we have, because we are preparing our children in a holistic way. That is most important for this holistic development. That is most important, and this multidisciplinary education is most important. Then you will find a lot of that we are going to have a research foundation, which will improve the quality. And in governance also you will find a lot of change, because when we are talking about this governance, you will find there will be a board of governors, and they will ultimately manage the higher education institution, and they can award degree in in the long run when they will get autonomy. So we are preparing we are giving maximum freedom to our teachers because they can introduce their own pedagogy, that autonomy. We are encouraging autonomy, and we are giving importance to all the institutions, and that will be that quality should be maintained between this government and private institutions, and focus is also improving the quality of government system, and that is also there. And also we are talking of internationalization, and that the quality, that our curriculum should be of international standard, and our student should also get opportunity to move to different part of the world, and they can go to other university, and students from other university can come to our country. So all these things we are highlighting in higher education also. So now I think time constraint is there. I'll not take much time. Just I'll try to summarize what actually we are going to do now. Because this time you will find we will come out with 4 national curriculum framework. Earlier, if you see, earlier practice was that we are developing curriculum framework for school education, and we are developing curriculum framework for teacher education. And for this teacher education, you will find policy has suggested that integrated program, that what we are running since long in our NCERT. We have 5 regional institutes of education, and we are running this program since long. From 60s, we are running this 4-year integrated program. But now Government of India has realized that all the program, teacher education program, should be 4-year integrated, because a lot of scope to improve the quality, and because that pedagogy content integration, pedagogy technology integration, all this is possible when we make it 4-year. So that is why by 2030, and I think all the B.Ed program will be only 4-year integrated program. That will be, but still that now 2-year B.Ed program will be there, 1-year B.Ed program will be there. Those who will complete 4-year graduation, they can go for 1-year B.Ed. Those who will complete 3 years graduation, they will go for 2-year B.Ed. So all these things are there. Then most important thing in higher education, you will find that regulatory, because one higher education commission is going to, because now we have UGC, we have AICT, we have NCT, and there is a lot of overlapping. So far as the regulation is concerned, one regulatory body will be there, Higher Education Commission, with 4 verticals. That is National Education, the Higher Education Regulatory Council it will have. Then another is the Accreditation Council for accreditation. Then another for grant, that is what UGC is doing. For the purpose of grant also, we will have one council within that commission. Then General Education Council for the standard. Because you see, in school education, we have defined the standard, we have defined the learning outcome. But in higher education, we have not defined the standard learning outcome. So that is why this council will take care of that, not only in higher education, but also in teacher education. So all these we are doing, and now we'll come out with national curriculum framework. When we'll talk about the national curriculum framework, we'll develop national curriculum framework for early childhood education and care. That is the most important thing we are going to do now, because this is the foundation program, and our foundations should be strong. That is why we are coming out with a separate national curriculum framework for early childhood education and care. Then second national curriculum framework will be for school education. Then third national curriculum framework will find for the teacher education, and we are NCT will develop, NCERT will provide support, and in consultation with NCERT, NCT will develop this teacher education curriculum framework. Then another curriculum framework NCERT will develop, that is the curriculum framework for adult education. For the first time, we are going to develop national curriculum framework for the adult education. So this time we are going to develop 4 national curriculum framework to implement this policy in the classroom, because for preschool, for school education, for teacher education, for adult education, and that is why it is very comprehensive in nature. And we want everything should be taken care of. That only that logical, mathematical knowledge should not dominate, and other aspect of also should dominate. And that is why from the beginning we should make the foundation strong, and we should bring back our children who are out of the school, and also we should prepare good teacher. That is the most important thing, because if we cannot prepare good teacher, then it will be very difficult to implement this policy. Only teacher can they bring about change. They can also bring about change in the classroom. They can make classroom vibrant. That is why there is a need of introducing the preparing good teacher for this, and that is why policy has recommended this 4-year integrated B.Ed program. They will get dual degree on B.Ed degree and also another special degree in that particular subject. Then what we have in the existing now, when we are talking about the policy, now what we have done, now we have two curriculum frameworks: curriculum framework for school education, curriculum framework for teacher education. And what are the resources we have? We have a lot of resources for this foundational literacy and numeracy. And we have developed guidelines for preschool curriculum and particularly preschool curriculum, three years preschool curriculum, and also curriculum we have developed. Now we'll come out to the, because keeping in view that some change is going to take place, we have already done some work. Now we'll develop the framework and accordingly we'll modify that. And but the most important thing, we have defined the learning outcome. That is something very, very important, because we should know what we are going to do and what our children are supposed to learn, what our children are expected to learn, because that is the competencies are most important. Till now content has dominated, and we all the time we are fighting, and we are putting in, the parents are very much worried how much mark, that means what percentage of mark that their children have secured. That is, but now it is when we talk of the competency, this is the critical thinking, this is the problem solving ability, this is the communication skill, this is the creativity that is going to determine, and our children can face any challenge in any part of the world, and they can compete with anybody, and they can solve their own problem. They can really contribute in nation building. That is the most important thing what we are going to do. And along with that, that is why you'll find what we'll do. We'll prepare for national curriculum framework. Then we'll prepare a framework for the examination reform. That initially I expressed my view that most important is assessment. That is why we'll come out with a framework, because now we are not going to measure the content knowledge, content mastery. We are going to measure the competency, and to how to measure competencies, and what type of framework we should develop, and what type of question we should ask for to measure competency. That we have already experimented. Because in 17 we conducted national achievement survey on 2.2 million students from all over the country, and we assess their competency by administering this competence based on this learning outcome. Keeping in view the learning outcome, we ask the question and we have assessed their competency level. But when we compare their competency level with their board exam, that means there is a wide gap, because our boards are just assessing their content knowledge. They're securing very high percentage. But when actually we're assessing their competency, the percentage is very low. That means that is not up to mark. That is why this is high time we should bring about change in the system. We should introduce this competency-based teaching learning approach that will really bring about a change. And after developing this 4 curriculum framework, we'll come out with the model syllabi and textbook. Normally, curriculum framework takes 1 year, and after that, it will take 2 years to develop the textbooks for all the classes from class 1 to class 12. All the classes will develop textbooks, and it will take minimum 2 years to develop all the textbooks, and that within 3 years we can come out with the curriculum framework and also the textbooks, and that can be implemented in our school situation. And most important thing, that we have to prepare our teachers. That is most important for this examination reform, for to bring about change in assessment. We have to prepare our teacher. That is why a lot of a good number of training program we have to conduct to orient our teachers on this new process of assessment, and that will do, and a lot of consultation with the different organization will do. And also we have to take care of the teachers and teacher educator. That is the most important thing, because teacher educators are responsible for preparing good teacher. If we can prepare good teacher educator, definitely they can prepare good teacher. So that also we have to see, and the pedagogical structure, and we have to implement that is why we need a change in the entire system of education. So this is the roadmap roadmap we have developed, and I think will be successful in implementing this policy, and we are very optimistic because this policy is really going to help our children to develop all their innate potentialities. This is holistic development. Focus is on holistic development. Focus is on multilingualism. Focus is in multidisciplinary approach. So all these are going to contribute significantly, not only in school education, but also in higher education, in teacher education, in vocational education, and that it will bring about a holistic change and transformation. While we are talking of this, because you'll find a significant change will take place if this policy is really implemented in true sense, and we are trying our best to implement this policy in right. I think we can implement in the right spirit and right direction, and that will really bring about a significant change in the education of our children, and also our learners who are in higher education. They will be also benefited because a lot of flexibility there. That is most important. Curricular, co-curricular, this watertight compartment is not, and everything is integrated, and we see everything from a holistic perspective. And I'm very happy that I got this opportunity to make a presentation on this national policy, and I'm thankful to Embassy and also the Cultural Center, and this is a great opportunity for me. And I would like to mention here that we have very good relationship with some institutions from Korea, that is the Academy of Korean Study and Korean Research Institute on Vocational Education, then in the Institute of Special Education, and also on information technology, because we have signed MOU continuously working with these institutes, and we are thankful to Government of Republic of Korea because we have very good relationship, and they have visited many times. We have also visited, and I think our relationship will be strengthened, and we can contribute something in a very positive manner, and both the country will be benefited, and we can take advantage of that. So I'm very happy, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Particularly, I express my sincere gratitude to Ambassador Madam and Dr. Sonu Tripathi for giving me this opportunity to interact with you on national policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Senapati, for your fascinating lecture and giving us an overview of the National Education Policy 2020. Very aptly, you have summarized it for our participants today. The essence being to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and skills, so as to support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Very beautifully, like you have given the historical perspective about our previous education policies, vision and key principles of the new economic policy, the transformational changes in school and higher education that this new economic policy aims to focus on, and how it focuses on equitable and inclusive education, approach to holistic and multidisciplinary education, and also emphasis on internationalization of higher education, special focus on vocational education, academic research, early childhood care, pedagogy, teachers development, effective governance, standardization, and number of other issues. Many thanks, Professor Senapati, for summarizing all this for our participants. And yes, we know that you are closely working with some of the partner institutions in Republic of Korea. We will be happy to facilitate and coordinate while you are working with these institutions. With these words, I now open the floor for discussion and invite questions from the participants. I request the participants, like if you have any question, you can either write in the chat box or raise your hand. Meanwhile, I would request if our ambassador has to make any remarks, any input from your side, ma'am.
I think I would prefer to leave it to our Korean friends and others, young people from India who have joined this session to pose the questions to Professor Senapati. I personally have benefited a great deal from the very, very comprehensive overview that he has given us. And as I anticipated, we now have much better clarity on what the new education policy, what is the philosophy behind the policy and the intention behind the policy. So I really don't have any specific questions to ask, but I would be very intrigued to hear what our other participants have to say. Thank you so much, Dr. Senapati.
Thank you, ma'am. I see a raised hand by one of our Korean friends, Yeonji So. Yeonji So.
너무 좋은 강의 감사드리고요. 이런 전반적이고 종합적인 내용을 이 짧은 시간에 담는다는 게 쉽지 않은데 일단 너무 감사하다는 말씀 먼저 드리고 싶습니다. 저 또한 한국에서 교육학과 4학년에 재학 중인 학생으로서 특히 더 흥미롭게 들었던 것 같아요. 강의를 들으면서 제가 되게 많은 궁금증이 있었는데 다른 분들께도 질문 기회를 드려야 하니까 한 2개 정도만 질문 드리고 싶은데요. 먼저 수업이나 교육이 구성주의와 경험주의에 강조되어서 거기에 입각되어서 진행되어야 한다고 말씀을 해주셨는데 이것을 한국에 비교를 해보면 사실 한국에도 교육에 다양한 변화가 있었어요. 그 단편적인 예로 자유학기제라는 게 있는데 중학교 1학년 학생들은 그 기간 동안 하고 싶은 걸 하면서 시험이 없는 기간을 보내야 한다라는 제도가 있는데요. 사실 이게 한국의 입시와 직면을 하게 되면 이때 지녔던 생각이나 가치관들이 고등학교 3학년이 되면 또다시 경쟁과 협업보다는 지식 위주의 수업이 많이 이루어지게 돼요. 여러분들도 아시다시피 한국에서는 입시가 되게 중요하고 그에 대한 학구열도 굉장히 심하거든요. 그래서 인도에서도 사실 이런 입시 교육이 되게 열정적이라고 알고 있는데 이러한 교육 정책이 이런 입시 제도와 관련해서 어떻게 고려되어서 진행되고 있는지 궁금하고요. 두 번째는 되게 간단한데 만약에 이러한 변화가 있다면 기존의 체제에 적응하고 있던 교사들도 분명히 변화해야 되고 그에 따른 교사 교육이나 교육 연수 혹은 사범대나 교육대학교 등 교육 양성기관에도 변화가 있어야 한다고 생각하는데 그것들은 좀 구체적인 방안으로 어떻게 진행될지 궁금합니다. 감사합니다.
Yeah. So then let me take another question from our another Korean friend, Hyokin Kang. Hyokin Kang.
Yes. Thank you for your speaking. I can easily get the plan and system of Indian education, and my video is out of my control, so please understand me. You said that Indian education is about giving students experience and discovering possibilities. It's true, but I'd like to talk about something else, the integration of the students. I think another purpose of education is to prevent future conflict in society. To do so, the integration of the students is important because India has a large population, diverse classes, different religions. Therefore, it is much more important in India. I wonder what policies India has in mind regarding the integration of students. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We will take one more question in this round. Songmi I am.
So first of all, thank you for an interesting lecture today. I'm Songmi Im from South Korea. So I think in terms of education, Korea and India have a lot in common. For example, the problem of cramming method of teaching and students are lack of self-determination and deep thought about themselves and their future, and studying for only an exam or good university and good job. So these days, Korea education has been changed, such as innovational public school. In this school, students can positively participate in the decision making. For example, they can present to select the new form of library, the design of desk or something like that. So the key is that they can decide for themselves what they want and what they need. So could you let me know whether India has a similar innovational school or program? And if so, could you give me an example of this kind of self-decision-making mechanism of the students? This is my questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Professor Senapati, you can respond to these three questions, then we can take the second round later.
The third question, can you clarify the third question? Third one.
Yeah.
Can you briefly repeat your question?
My question is, in Korea, there are some changes in public educational system. For example, students of self-decision-making mechanism. So my question is, could you let me know if India has a similar change of school or program? So I mean the students in India can participate in decision-making system of school.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'm very happy to get these three questions. One, for the first one is something relating to teacher education. Actually, in this policy, a lot of suggestion is there, a lot of recommendation, and to implement these recommendation, first we have to bring about change in the teacher education program. That is most important thing. And in this connection, I'd like to mention that you'll be happy to know that in India, we have already initiated that program before the release of this policy. Last year, we are conducting a very massive teacher training program, in-service training program that is known as NISTA, that is National Initiative for Teachers and School for the Advancement, for their advancement. So what we are doing, we are inviting teachers as well as the school heads. And this program is for the 42 lakhs teachers. 42 lakhs teachers in India we are planning. Until now we have completed 17.5 lakhs. Because of this COVID situation, we could not complete. And here what we have done in this message, we have launched in India, we have 36 states and union territories. Out of 36, we have launched this program in 34 states. And all the government machineries are involved. And now we are preparing our teachers in this direction. They should know the new pedagogy. They should know the new assessment process, what policy has recommended. That is why we have introduced different modules on school-based assessment, so that they can understand this, how they can involve students in the process of assessment, how they can make learners engaged and more active in teaching learning process, how they will conduct different activities, the project work, etc. So we have already started this orientation in 2019, we started this program. Our target was to complete. Because of this COVID situation, we can't, but now we have started the online program. So already we have started the in-service teacher training program. And similarly, in the same way, we will also introduce it in the pre-service teacher education program, so that we can prepare quality teacher who can understand the pedagogy, what the policy has recommended, and the process of assessment, and also the curricular implication, so that they can implement this policy in the right direction in their classroom. That we have already initiated. And so far as the second question, that language diversity, because India is a country with a lot of diversity there, and to take care of that diversity, the policy has suggested that we have to bring this local flavor into our textbook. Normally in India, NCERT developed textbook for the whole country, particularly for the centrally, we have one board, that CBSE board, Central Board of Secondary Education. And most of the schools are affiliated to that board, and we prepare textbook for them. And we develop curriculum framework, and that curriculum framework is accepted by all the states of our country. And most of the, now around 28 states are using NCERT textbook. They get it translated. So to take care of this diversity, and this policy has recommended that local flavor should be introduced. The students should know about the local history. They should know about the local culture. They should know about the local geography. And that is going to be introduced in our textbook. because both national things will be there, that the curriculum framework will come out with the guidelines, and all the constitutional values, the core elements will be there. Along with that, the local specific contents will be there. And when children are coming from their local area, they will first know about the local things, then they will know about the national thing, then international thing. So that the policy has recommended something very unique, and also multilingualism, their language, their culture, their value system, everything is going to be incorporated in our curriculum. So that will bring about a significant change in the entire teaching learning process. And here, this the involvement of students with critical thinking, and we actually the way now we are planning, our students will be independent thinker. We want to make them autonomous learner. And if we can make our classroom more vibrant, more participatory in nature, and we can give more freedom to our students, create a very conducive learning environment for our students, ultimately it will help them in decision making, and they can take their decision. Now it is more teacher dominated, though we have introduced our national curriculum framework, started this, but it has not been implemented properly. But this policy is coming in a very big way, and now definitely we have to implement it, and we have to bring about change, and our students will definitely develop their critical thinking. They can take decision, and through when we are recommending, they will be participating in the process of assessment, that they will also participate in different activities. In higher education, of course, our students participate in decision making, because we have student council, they are active and they participate in decision making also in consultation with the school authority or university authorities, they do. So I think I have clarified the points, or anything you can ask me. There may be some communication gap.
Thank you, Professor Senapati. Let us take the second round of questions. Miss Deepal Mehta.
Thank you for your insights on the new government policy. I'm really excited for the concept of New India with the new education policy now. I would like to ask you, Indian government has accepted the Korean language course right now. So how is it going to help the students with the foreign language exchange, as well as how is the government planning to have the government collaborations with India and South Korea in terms of the international firms' employment in India or even in South Korea?
You see, in the national policy, when if you see this one, you will see the first foreign language is Korean language. In policy,
Yeah.
the Korean, Germany, all other languages, the first one is Korea. So because we have very good relationship with Korea, and now this will be implemented in secondary stage, when we are talking of 3 languages now, 2 Indian language and 1 foreign language. So it is the freedom is there. The state can decide which language they will adopt. Even the school authority and at their level, regional level, they can decide which language they prefer. And now the policy has made it clear that one can learn Korean language at school, particularly in secondary school. And when the Korean language will be introduced, definitely our relationship with Korea will be strengthened. Now also we have very good relationship, because we are following Act East policy, and a very good relationship, and it will be more strengthened when Korean language will be introduced in our Indian schools, and Indian children will know about Korean language. In the same way, Hindi also should be introduced in Korea,
Yeah.
so that both country can have very good relationship, and we can renew our historical relationship. So that will be something great.
So actually, I also have one more question. It's like, as you mentioned, that you want to reduce the burden of a student in terms of the baggage that they carry. But I also want to ask you, like, do you think the new education policy will not affect the mental health of the students and reduce the number of suicides in the country due to the education policy which we had before?
I'm very happy to answer this question, because now we are putting a lot of emphasis on this mental health. Particularly, you'll be happy to know that during this COVID period, we have also started this mental health service. We have one TV channel every day from 5 to 30. There is some discussion, and we are running this counseling program. We have students, and voluntarily 270 students, they volunteered, and free of cost they are providing service. Now Government of India has started Manodar Fund. But in this policy, we are putting a lot of emphasis on development of socio-personal qualities. And for that also, we have started the teacher training. In teacher training, we have introduced one model on the development of social personal qualities. Because all the time we are studying science, mathematics, different subjects, neglecting these areas, the personal value, social value, our feelings. So that is why we have introduced it. And when we are talking about holistic education, this will be taken care of. And definitely it will strengthen that, and will get a good individual, good citizen who are emotionally stable, and emotional quotient is more important than this IQ. So that from that point of view, this policy definitely will bring about a change.
Thank you, Professor Senapati. Let us just collect a couple of more questions, and then maybe you can respond to all of them. And I would request the participants to be very precise. Just ask one question so that everyone gets equal chance. And please introduce yourself also before asking the question. I see there are two questions in the chat box. May I request Mr. Ashish? Mr. Ashish, if you are here, could you please unmute and ask your question?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Namaste. Thank you, Professor Senapati, for providing such a wonderful overview about new education policy. And thank you, Director Ma'am Sonu Trivedi and Ambassador Ma'am from India, Korea, for providing us such a wonderful platform to discuss these things. So my question here is about the holistic development, pedagogy for holistic development in new education policy. As Professor Senapati has already mentioned that an important aspect about the equal weightage on curricular, co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So can you please, Professor Senapati, elaborate this point, like how is it going to be implemented at a school level? And just a small part of second question is about the use of Indian languages as medium of instruction at a school level. Is there any plan to do such thing at university level? And if it is so, then what may be the action plan to implement it is in better way? And the situation, and I'm discussing it because right now at university level and other things, we see that there is a lack of resources for medium of instruction in Indian languages. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ashish. And now there is another question by Mr. Neil Banerjee.
Sir, I am Neil Banerjee from the University of Calcutta. Sir, I have a question that what are the changes has been brought into the teaching learning process in rural India in terms of ICT under this National Education Policy 2020?
Okay, Professor Senapati, you can respond to these three questions, and then.
Okay. Thank you. The first question is something related to holistic development. You see, when we are talking of holistic development takes care of the development of all the aspects of human personality. It is physical, mental, social, emotional, aesthetic, everything. But when in our school system, what we are doing, when we are delivering lecture and we are trying to transact what is there in the textbook, particularly it caters to the need of the cognitive domain. But now in this policy, you will see when there is some paradigm shift, particularly in pedagogy, you will find because the paradigm shift in learning we call, because when learning, because earlier it was knowledge acquisition, we're acquiring more information. Now it is knowledge construction. And in this process, so what we have suggested, there will be lecture, the teacher will not deliver lecture. Teacher will conduct different activities. When students will participate in group, they will be divided into groups. They will share their experiences with others. It will help them to develop their communication skill. It will help them to develop their socio-personal quality. That is most important. When children will discuss, share among themselves, that will help really in the development of the socio-personal quality. And a lot of emphasis on sports, physical health, mental health, and we have taken into account all the domain, all the aspects. So definitely when the curriculum framework will be developed, and definitely we'll highlight all these, the games, sports, mental health, and the emotional aspect, all these will be highlighted and we'll take care of it. That is going to bring about a significant change. The second question, the Indian language. You see, when we are talking about the multilingualism, we are promoting our own language, Indian languages, even the dialects also, because children will get opportunity to learn through their mother tongue at early stage. And in higher stage also, a lot of focus is on promotion of Indian language, classical language, and other language. And if we can produce a lot of material in our own language, then definitely we can promote our language, we can promote our culture, and what is there in what most of the children do not know, they will know because they will be connected to the root we are going to do. And the third thing, the ICT part, just I would like to mention here, because during this COVID period, NCERT has come out with an alternative academic calendar. Because we have to address our children, not only in Delhi or in capital city, the children who are in rural area, who are in remote area, and their needs also should be addressed. So what we have done, we have developed the guideline. We have asked the teachers to follow that guideline. They are using their internet facility. Those who are having the internet facility, they are getting the benefit. Those who are not having the internet, simple mobile, the teacher can guide and the parents can conduct different activities inside the home. Now they are doing. And similarly, for the rural children who are not having internet facility, not having mobile, for them we are running this television program. Every day we are running television. Through television we have one channel, and also now we are going to launch 12 channel. For each class one channel, and next month it will be launched. And so that we can reach the children who are not having internet, who are not having telephone. We can, through television we can reach, through radio we can reach, community radio we are promoting. So we are doing it to bring about change in a big way. And because those who are not having, and we have pedagogically we have also come out with some guidelines for that we call learning enhancement guideline. The rural children, that means they can take advantage of this, particularly community. We have suggested more community involvement, community participation. In the policy also, a lot of focus is on community participation. If community will come forward, because it is not the only government can bring about change, community members have to participate. That also we have suggested. Definitely it is going to be implemented in a big way, and it will bring about change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Senapati. Just last round of questions we will take. We are very thankful for being so generous with time. We have a question from one of our Korean friends, Miss Kim Yong-hee.
교육 정책에 관한 그 좋은 말씀, 교수님 말씀에 감사드립니다. 저는 우리 한국의 그 역사 교육에 관하여 인도의 경우가 어떠한지 묻고 싶어 질문 하나를 드리겠습니다. 한국의 그 국사 교육에 관해서는 정권이 바뀐다든지 그리고 주무장관이 바뀌게 되면은 대학 수능 시험에 필수로 됐다가 또 선택으로 된다든지 그런 일관성을 상실하는 바람에 역사 교육에 임하는 학생들이 역사에 관한 그 지식의 절대량 또는 그 지식의 일관성이 없기 때문에 사실 그 학생을 둔 부모로서 그 역사 교육에 관한 또 역사 지식에 대한 굉장한 우려를 금할 수가 없습니다. 그래서 질문을 드리겠습니다. 인도에서는 그 인도사나 세계사 등 역사 교육에 관한 어떤 정책을 펼치고 있고 이 교육에 관한 어떤 그 원칙이나 어떤 기조가 있는지 그걸 좀 알고 싶습니다. 그리고 또 하나 인도에서도 그 숱하게 정권이 교체하고 그럴 텐데 정권이 교체되면은 또 어떤 그 인도사 역사 교육에 어떤 영향을 미치는지 그걸 좀 알고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe we can just collect one or two more questions. Mr. Bhagat. Mr. Bhagat, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Mukesh Bhagat. My question is related to policy related to mother tongue. More than 10% of our population belongs to tribal community, and they face critical problem related to education, and they have very low literacy rate in comparison with other groups. So, sir, I request you to talk about the major challenges that our government is facing in relation to implementing mother tongue policy.
Thank you. And just one last question from Sanskriti Sinha. Sanskriti Sinha, please unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Sanskriti Sinha. I just passed my class 12th standard. So it's a privilege to hear the overpoint view from view on the National Education Policy 2020. But as we all know, there are pros as well as cons to everything. And some of the colleges where they are lacking in basic facilities, we cannot expect more teachers and streams. Moreover, it will become too difficult for teachers to manage so many streams, hectic for teachers as they don't get paid much. Indirectly, it will increase the cost of education. Don't we think that underprivileged student will be lack in getting this facility at the higher level? And second question is very short, that what it will affect for the college students for the batch of 2020 and 2021. Thank you, sir, for this amazing session.
Professor Senapati, you can just respond to these questions.
Thank you. Thank you. The first question is very difficult question because history we all know, because sometimes also we face parliamentary question, but we address this in a very scientific way. What we do, we develop this national curriculum framework. When we develop this national curriculum framework, here we develop the guideline. Particularly, we take into account our constitution, our core values, and also we see history from a scientific point of view. You know, all the time that there will be a problem because it's a question of interpretation, and there is a lot of subjectivity in history as compared to science, because science is very objective in nature. There is no issue, but in social science, a lot of problem. We also face sometimes problem. But what we do in India, what we do, we conduct a lot of discussion before finalizing the syllabus. Even national curriculum framework, we take it to the whole country. We invite suggestion from all over the country, and we discuss it. And this time, I think we can address this issue very systematically, because we are going to highlight the local history. Because most of the time we face the question that why history of a particular region is not included in the NCERT textbook. That question all the time we face, because it is not possible to keep all the personalities, all the events in the national textbook. But this time that we are going to address that, because when we are talking about the local flavor, that means local history will be included, and the student of that particular region will know about that history. So that we can address in a very systematic way through this new policy, and there will be, I think there will be no problem, because we are going to highlight the national events as well as the local events. So both will be integrated in our textbook, that we can address in a very systematic and scientific way. The second question is relating to mother tongue and multilingualism. I know I'm from Odisha, and many tribal populations are there, and I have seen, because the tribal, actually, what is the problem in that their mother tongue is something different from the regional language, from the state language. That is why when some research studies have been conducted, that if we, in the early stage, if we try to teach them through their mother tongue, that bilingual approach will be there. Suppose Odia will be there, and also that tribal language, that dialect, that will be also there. So in the early stage, they can understand through their mother tongue. When they will be little older, and they in the meantime, since it is a bridge language, that bilingual textbook will there. In the process, they can learn the Odia language, and when they will come to the higher stage, they can learn this, and they can comprehend, and they can understand. And that is why in this policy, a lot of focus on multilingualism. That is the purpose. Bilingual textbook. We are talking about bilingual textbook, just to overcome this issue. Our tribal children are the children who are in remote area and whose language is something different from the state language. They will be benefited a lot out of this. And the third question, I think I have forgotten the third question. The third question, what was the third question? Can you repeat? So many streams, yes. I remember. So many streams, you see, it is for the benefit of the students, because now there will be no watertight compartment. And students can select their subject as per their aptitude, as per their choice, as per their interest. And we'll introduce this when we have teachers. If we don't have teachers, we're not going to introduce. So first, that is why in policy, you'll find a lot of focus is on preparation of teachers. And after preparing, we are not going to implement it immediately. That means we have to prepare teachers. We have to provide them right type of training, and then only we'll implement this. But this is going to help our students to learn in a better way, because we can cater to their need, their interest, their aptitude, and ultimately the students will be benefited. So that is the purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Senapati, for your brilliant lecture and for your time and being so generous and patient for answering all the questions. In fact, it has been a fascinating lecture and also very engaging for our participants. We got a very good response. At one point of time, we had almost 180 participants, and we also could hear some of the questions also from our Korean friends. So I'm sure in future period of time, we will have more engagement on similar issues, and I'm sure that we will get an opportunity to further interact with you. And also let me also share this with our participants that we are also closely working with NCERT for developing the study material, as NCERT has added the text on Korean history and its process of modernization. Similarly, we are trying to also develop the text from Indian side so that it could be incorporated in the Korean textbooks. So we will be closely working on that front. And also we would be happy to facilitate all your MOUs that you have with other Korean counterparts. Once again, I would like to thank you, Professor Senapati, for your time and for giving us an overview of the national education policy. In fact, even for us, it is something new, and we are very happy that we got an opportunity to interact with you and to know more about this policy. And in fact, one very important thing that we appreciate about this education policy is its inclusive nature, and it is focusing on multidisciplinary approach. That is very interesting. And also like vocational education, and although it has been the focus from previous years also, but then it is trying to focus more on inclusive education and the development of teachers, pedagogy, and like 360-degree assessment and all. So these are some of the very important aspects, and I'm sure this would be embraced throughout India and will receive much appreciation. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center and Embassy of India, I would also like to thank all the participants for being present here on the third day of this very, very important workshop, where we are trying to highlight the facets of modern India. Please join us tomorrow for the fourth lecture, which will be on Indian economy in transition. The lead speaker for tomorrow's lecture is Ambassador Mohan Kumar, who is the chairman of RIS, which is a leading think tank based in New Delhi. We look forward to your participation tomorrow, and many, many thanks for your presence and for your interaction and engagement today. Thank you. And thank you to all our team members for your help and support.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.